In this video, we are going to go through a McKinsey practice case interview. You can find the link to this case from McKinsey's website in the video description below. This case is an acquisition case, one of the most common types of cases in McKinsey first round interviews. Client goal. Our client is Globopharm, a major pharmaceutical company, Pharmaco, with $10 billion a year in revenue. Its corporate headquarters and primary research and development centers are in Germany, with regional sales offices worldwide. Description of situation. Globopharm has a long, successful tradition in researching, developing, and selling small molecule drugs. This class of drugs represents the vast majority of drugs today, including aspirin and most blood pressure or cholesterol medications. Globopharm is interested in entering a new, rapidly growing segment of drugs called biologicals. These are often proteins or other large complex molecules that can treat conditions not addressable by traditional drugs. R&D for biologicals is vastly different from small molecule R&D. To gain these capabilities, pharmacos have three options. They can build them from scratch, partner with existing startups, or acquire the startups. Since its competitors are already several years ahead of Globopharm, Globopharm wants to jump cut its biologicals program by acquiring BioFuture, a leading biologicals startup based in the San Francisco area. BioFuture was founded 12 years ago by several prominent scientists and now employs 200 people. It is publicly traded, and at its current share price, the company is worth about $1 billion in total. McKinsey study. Globopharm has engaged McKinsey to evaluate the BioFuture acquisition and to advise on its strategic fit with Globopharm's biologicals strategy. Our overall question today, therefore, is should Globopharm acquire BioFuture? So here's how I would summarize the case. Our client Globopharm is a major pharmaceutical company that researches, develops, and sells small molecule drugs. They are interested in entering a new rapidly growing segment of drugs called biologicals, which have the capability to treat conditions not addressable by traditional drugs. The objective of the case is to determine whether Globopharm should acquire BioFuture, a leading biological startup. Let's move on to question 1. What factors should the team consider when evaluating whether Globopharm should acquire BioFuture? To create a framework for this question, we can ask ourselves, what must be true for us to recommend acquiring BioFuture? A number of different ideas might come to mind. There are meaningful synergies between the two companies. BioFuture leads its competitors. BioFuture has proprietary drugs, processes, or intellectual property. BioFuture is fast-growing and profitable. The drugs that BioFuture is developing are in attractive markets, and the acquisition price of BioFuture is attractive. These ideas can be categorized into 4 broad categories: market attractiveness, company attractiveness, synergies, and financials. By reorganizing our ideas into these 4 broad categories, we get the following framework. Market attractiveness of BioFuture's drugs. What is the market size of BioFuture's drugs? What are the market's growth rates? And what are average profit margins? Company attractiveness. Is BioFuture growing and profitable? Do they have proprietary drugs, processes, or intellectual property? Synergies. Are there potential revenue synergies? Or are there potential cost synergies? Financials. Is the acquisition price attractive? And what is the expected return on investment? One thing to note here is that I have assumed Globopharm has decided that they wanted to take an acquisition route to enter the biologicals market and have determined that they cannot develop the capabilities from scratch and have already looked at potential partnerships. I would clarify this with the interviewer before I started brainstorming my framework. If these other 2 options were still on the table, I would include an additional area in my framework called strategic alternatives and list questions such as, would it be better to develop biologicals drug capabilities internally? Would a partnership make more sense than an acquisition? Let's move on to question 2. The team wants to explore BioFuture's current drug pipeline. The team decides first to focus on evaluating the value of BioFuture's current drug portfolio. What issues should the team consider when evaluating the value of BioFuture's existing drug pipeline? To structure our answer, let's again think about the characteristics that would need to be true for BioFuture's drug pipeline to be attractive. Brainstorming, you might come up with the following ideas. The therapeutic areas that these drugs treat are big markets. The drugs can be priced at a high price with high margins. The drugs can capture meaningful market share. The drug pipeline has many drugs. The drugs are proprietary and can't be copied by competitors. The drugs perform well on patients. And finally, there's a high probability that drugs in development will actually be completed and approved for sale. If we were to group these ideas into separate categories, we might get the following major areas. Drug pipeline market attractiveness. Do the drugs target markets that are large? Do they target markets that are growing quickly? And do they target markets that have high margins? Drug pipeline quality. How many drugs are in the pipeline? Is there a high probability that drugs will be approved? Do the drugs perform well on patients? And are these drugs proprietary and difficult to copy? Drug pipeline financials. What are the costs of developing the drugs? How much market share can the drugs capture? And what are the expected revenues? Let's move on to question 3. Below is a description of expected probability of success by stage in the pharma R&D pipeline. Global Pharma believes that the likelihood of success of BioFuture's primary drug candidate can be improved by investing an additional $150 million in a larger phase 2 trial. The hope is that this investment would raise the success rate in phase 2, meaning that more candidate drugs successfully make it to phase 3 and beyond. By how much would the phase 2 success rate need to increase in order for this investment to break even? The interviewer would tell you to assume that if the drug is successfully marketed and sold, it would be worth $1.2 billion. That is, the present value of all future profits from selling the drug is $1.2 billion. So let's look at this chart, which shows the research and development path of a drug candidate. We see that there are 4 different stages for candidate drugs: phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and filing before the drug can come to market. For each stage, we are given the likelihood that the drug candidate will pass and move on to the next stage versus the likelihood that it will fail. So, in order for us to determine how much phase 2 success rate would need to increase in order for the $150 million investment to break even, we can take the following steps. We'll start with the fact that if this drug is approved, it would be worth $1.2 billion. We'll then determine the expected value of the drug in the filing phase, and then determine the expected value of the drug in the phase 3 trial phase. We'd add $150 million to this value to determine the new expected value in the phase 3 trial. Then we would determine what percentage increase in expected value this corresponds to. And finally, this will determine how much phase 2 success percentage needs to increase by in order to match this increase in expected value. So during filing, there's a 90% chance the drug is worth $1.2 billion and a 10% chance that the drug is worth nothing if it fails. Therefore, the expected value of the drug at this stage is $1.08 billion. Looking at phase 3, there is a 50% chance that the drug will be worth $1.08 billion at the next stage and a 50% chance that the drug will be worth $0 at the next stage. Therefore, the expected value of the drug during phase 3 trial is $540 million. We are spending an additional $150 million during phase 2, so the expected value of phase 3 needs to increase from $540 million to $690 million in order for this investment to break even. This is about a 28% increase in expected value. To get a 28% increase in expected value, the rate of success would also need to increase by 28%. Currently, the likelihood of passing phase 1 and phase 2 is 70% times 40% or 28%. So, if we add 28% onto this figure, we get that we need a 56% likelihood of passing phase 1 and phase 2, which is double what it was before. Since phase 1 rates aren't changing, the doubling in likelihood of passing needs to come from phase 2, so the new phase 2 rate needs to be 80% instead of 40%. At initial glance, this doesn't seem very likely. I imagine it is very difficult to double a phase 2 success rate, especially if the average success rate is only 40%. However, we should probably verify this intuition by asking the interviewer for historical data on how much a larger phase 2 trial typically increases success rates. We can look at data for either our company or for competitors to check our hypothesis that this investment probably won't increase our expected value of the drug enough. Let's move on to question 4. Next, the team explores the potential setup with BioFuture after the acquisition. Although BioFuture's existing drug pipeline is relatively limited, Global Pharma is highly interested in its ability to serve as a biological research engine that, when combined with Global Pharma's existing R&D assets, will produce many candidate drugs over the next 10 years. What are your hypotheses on the major risks of integrating the R&D functions of BioFuture and Global Pharma? So, when looking at the risks of integrating these two companies, we need to look at how compatible the two companies are. Typically, the more similar two companies are, the more compatible they will be. We have some basic information on the two companies, namely size, location, and area of focus. Let's talk through each of these areas one at a time. Looking at size, Global Pharma is a major pharmaceutical company that has $10 billion a year in revenue, while BioFuture is a startup whose total company share price value is $1 billion. Therefore, Global Pharma is significantly larger than BioFuture. We might believe that startups typically hire younger people, while larger companies typically hire older people. Additionally, startups tend to have a fast-moving work culture, while larger companies have a slower work culture. Therefore, on this dimension, integration seems challenging. Looking at location, Global Pharma is based in Germany, while BioFuture is based in San Francisco. Due to the physical distance between the two companies, commuting from one office to another will be time-consuming, and even scheduling virtual meetings will create some time zone challenges. Additionally, there could be a language barrier between English speakers and German speakers. Finally, looking at area of focus, Global Pharma specializes in small molecule drugs, while BioFuture specializes in biologicals. These are very different drug classes, so having scientists from the two companies working together will likely need a lot of knowledge transfer and training, since Global Pharma scientists probably don't know how to work with biologicals. So, to answer this question, you could structure your answer in the following way. There are three major integration risks that suggest that BioFuture may not be the ideal acquisition target for Global Pharma. 1. There are likely major differences in company cultures. Global Pharma is a large company that has an older employee base and slower moving work culture, while BioFuture is a smaller startup with a younger employee base and a faster moving work culture. 2. There are geography and language risks. San Francisco and Germany are very far apart, making travel and virtual meetings challenging. Additionally, there could be language barriers between employees. 3. The two companies have minimal overlap in area of focus. Global Pharma focuses on small molecule drugs, while BioFuture focuses on biologicals. These three major risks should be taken into account in considering the acquisition. Do the benefits of the acquisition bring more value to Global Pharma than the integration challenges? Will BioFuture still be a leader in biologicals after the acquisition? These are the questions I want to look into. So that brings us to the end of the case. This case did not require a recommendation. However, if we were pressed for a recommendation, I would think through what reasons we have for acquiring BioFuture versus what reasons we have against it. Reasons for acquiring BioFuture include that Global Pharma wants to enter the biologicals market, Global Pharma has decided on going down the acquisition route, and BioFuture is a leading biologicals startup. Reasons against acquiring BioFuture include that integration would be challenging, there may be better alternatives such as acquiring a different company, and we have no information yet on the acquisition price. Because of this, I would probably lean towards recommending not being hasty in acquiring BioFuture. Further exploration is needed to justify the acquisition. If you found this video helpful, please give this video a like and subscribe for more videos. Check out some of the other videos on this channel for more practice cases from McKinsey, BCG, and Bain, and more.